What if election rigging was legal? Well, guess what? It is. Today I want to talk about gerrymandering, which is basically when politicians redraw election maps to help their party win more seats. To stay somewhat apolitical, I'm going to use the Green Party and the Orange Party for examples. Let's say the Orange Party is in charge in a state. Since each district has to have the same number of people, there are two main tricks. Cracking, which breaks up areas where the other party's voters live so they can't win anywhere, and packing, which stuffs as many of them as possible into one district so they win there, but nowhere else. If you're having a hard time visualizing this or understanding it, there are multiple good videos on YouTube. The point is, a party can effectively steal representation away from another party. Like in North Carolina, when 47% of the votes went to one party for the state House of Representatives, but that party only got 23% of the representatives. The Voting Rights Act adds another layer. It says districts can't be drawn in ways that weaken the voting power of racial minorities. But here's the tricky part. To fix that, do we actually create districts where one racial group is the majority? The Supreme Court has said it depends on whether that group lives close together and tends to vote for the same party. So even fixing discrimination can start to look like gerrymandering. But I think that if the result brings a close match between the voting percentages and the election results, then it isn't much of a problem. In any case, gerrymandering or political redistricting is generally a problem because it's rigging the election to be in one side's favor. And if that can be done, it makes it very difficult for the other side to ever get in a position to unrig the game. Or if they do, they might decide to rig it in their favor instead. Recently, under pressure from the president, some Republican-led states are redrawing maps to favor their side, while some Democratic states argue they have to gerrymander just to balance things out. So of course the question then is, do two wrongs make a right? Or do the ends justify the means? If one team is cheating, should the other side cheat to make it fair? So what can we do to be sure the lines are drawn fairly? If we were ever to fix it by constitutional amendment, how would we word that amendment? Many states have created independent redistricting commissions so that there is less political bias in the process. But what kind of outcomes should we hope for in good redistricting? What would fair look like? Foremost, fair would mean that the percent of votes would closely match the percent of seats won by a party. If that can be accomplished, the biggest problem of gerrymandering is solved. However, it's not the only concern that needs to be addressed. Do we want districts that are competitive between each party? Or do we want districts that are composed of mostly people who vote for one party? Having results which match expected votes is certainly easier if we pack people together from one party. And it also typically means that people with some demographic and economic similarities will be together and can be more easily represented as a whole, without the elected representative having to balance as many competing interests. On the other hand, if the district isn't competitive, then it becomes easier for someone from the far left or the far right to win. The representative won't need to practice the virtues of balance and compromise, and society could be worse as a result. In the end, people from an independent redistricting commission could use an AI to help them create fair districts. But what would the prompt be? Even if we did want to put similar people together, would we just say to create districts of mostly people from the same party, which could potentially include large groups of both rich and poor who vote for the same party? Here is my imperfect draft version for such a prompt for an imaginary state with 12 U.S. House districts. Create 12 districts with an equal population in each. Shape the districts so that, based on voter registration data, the percentage of districts where one party is in the majority will match the vote share of that party for the last election for the U.S. House of Representatives. Secondary to that result, shape each district to be composed of people from similar rural, suburban, or urban demographic groups as much as possible. Tertiary to that, shape the district to encompass people of similar income level as much as possible. But however we draw the lines, the real question is whether voters are choosing their politicians or politicians are choosing their voters. If you were going to use AI to draw fair districts, what would your prompt be? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget, to help others see this, share, like, and subscribe. Thanks. I'm Bridge Builder M.